Allison. Thanks for joining me for Where I'm From 57 with Michael. We went to college together. That's why I'm wearing this theme sweatshirt. What have you been reading? I read People Person by Candace Carty Williams. She wrote Queenie, which I absolutely loved. So I was so. Book came out and I read it and I enjoyed it very much. It was fun to read fiction. I've been reading so much memoir. It was a nice change of pace. So, Michael, I've invited you to join me. Oh,
Hi.
I hear you.
Hi.
Hi, you did it.
I did it.
Yes, do you see my sweatshirt?
I do. I
I was
did
like,
wear the same one.
I just, I'm going to go for it. I'm going for it. So I did.
This is so weird. There's text across my face right now.
Oh, yeah, it'll go away.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it does.
good.
Isn't technology fun?
It's great.
Hi.
Hi. It's been so long since we actually talked.
I know. It's sort of strange that it takes something like this,
Yeah,
but that's how life is these days.
it
I
really
was,
is. And sometimes we forget that it's a poor substitute.
yeah,
The real thing.
yeah. It's better than nothing,
That's
I will
right.
say.
Yes.
Um, Hi, Sonia. Um, I I can't make the writing go away. I think it will go
You
away.
see it too?
Yeah, I do.
Oh no.
But I
Okay.
don't. But they won't see it on the recording, so don't worry.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. It's
Okay.
it's all an illusion. So how are you? Would you
I,
like to chat or would you just like to launch into your poem?
whatever you want. This is
Oh,
this
it's your choice.
thing to a bunch of yours. Um, I have to say, I was listening to um, oh, Carolyn.
Yeah,
Yes, Carolyn.
yeah.
From a couple of times ago. Did she grow up on Long Island?
She grew up, is it Long Island or Manhattan? I'm not sure.
Okay. The reason
Yeah.
I'm because she mentioned in her poem um, the chocolate Entenmann's donuts, and that's a Long Island state. Like,
She's very New York. I mean, she's lived out here for a long time, but
yeah,
her parents were still there
yes,
until they passed.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Hmm.
But it's wild because I've read a ton of the poems on your site, and it's so funny how you can pick out
Hmm.
elements and say, oh yeah, that's me too. I could put
Hmm.
that in.
Yes, that's
Yes,
totally my experience. And I love it. Like, no matter what the poem is, there's something.
that's right.
And I love that because it speaks to my larger belief that we're all connected.
Yes, that's absolutely true. That's
So,
absolutely true. And I think that as much as we give it we 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 rail against it, social media really has made the world smaller in that way.
yes, there are positives to social media. I will admit that, yeah, it is difficult sometimes when you see the other things.
Yeah,
Yes, but the positives are like we've reconnected. And I was on a call before this and I was saying it's hard to connect with people if it's not work related. This isn't work per se, but it's like a project. So then it has given me an opportunity to reconnect with so many people and I'm grateful for that. So.
yeah. This is wonderful, and what you've put together here is wonderful, and it seems like forever since you sent me those prompts.
It's
And
been a bit. I have to say, you're my second male guest. So congratulations.
I actually heard that when you interviewed Maya.
It's like,
And
it's number 57. You're number two.
I don't know why.
I think it's a little intimidating, if I'm being honest. I think there's more space in general for women to talk about their feelings and where they came from and their journeys and I don't think men get that same kind of space.
Hmm. I don't know that I agree with you.
Okay, so what do you think it is?
Um, I think I think it's probably assuming that men wouldn't necessarily be interested in that.
Hmm.
And not on your part in general. I'm saying
No, it's fine.
societally, yeah. Um,
How dare you?
well,
I have not reached
good.
out to as many men. That is true. Because I'm like, although I did to this group I'm involved in, I said, okay, guys, like, so that a bunch of them are coming in May. May is going to be the month of men.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, it's funny because, I mean, granted, this doesn't rhyme, but I mean, it might be the actual word poem,
Hmm.
or poetry rather.
Hmm.
If this were non-rhyming hip hop, maybe you'd get
I have to rebrand, is what you're saying?
exactly.
Okay. I
But
think poem is an intimidating word,
it is.
for sure.
And
Okay.
not even that it's intimidating. I actually think that you were talking about rebranding. I actually think that it's it feels anachronistic and not relevant when it is very much so.
I think those are great words. Yes. And I don't know if you read Time magazine or if anyone else does, but in the back of it, Ada Limon was in the poet laureate of the United States, talking about how poetry is having a rebirth and
Yes,
resurgence as people are realizing how relevant it is and how it is available to all of us.
and,
And
and the Gorman, I imagine, helped to
yeah,
realize
for
that
sure.
big time.
For sure. And I was so disappointed, to be honest, by some of the discourse surrounding that because it was like, is she a real poet? Which I was like, oh no, you guys are the same part of this
That's
problem. Oh, some snobby jerks.
absolutely.
Like she doesn't speak to me. I'm like, okay, well then don't listen. She speaks to millions of people, and that's a beautiful thing.
That's the first time I've heard anything negative about her.
Oh yeah, well, just
I
goes to show you, I know all kinds of people.
and my get out of my echo chamber.
Well, I think she's been a huge. She has been such a joyful injection into like the whole discourse,
Yeah,
the public discourse about poetry um and who it
yeah,
belongs to everyone.
that's true. I don't know if you know this, but I'm working with our mutual friend
Oh,
Sandra Schaff.
I did know that.
Um, she's written a play and she's written multiple drafts, but we're actually having a table read or a
Mm.
staged reading in the next month or so, and it's all about Walt Whitman,
Oh, wonderful. How exciting.
relevant
Oh,
to America today, and it's actually backed by the Walt Whitman birthplace, which is right near here where I live and work. So
oh, cool.
yes.
I saw her stack of Walt Whitman books that she shared, so I assumed something wonderful was afoot. I didn't know you were involved. That's
Yep.
exciting. Great. Yay.
And again, it's always it's been really been a phenomenal part of my life to be able to stay in touch with people from, I mean, now we started 30 years ago,
I
um,
know.
more than 30 years ago, college, and to be able to stay in touch. I remember going to our 10th reunion, and it was exciting to see all these people I hadn't heard from or seen in 10 years because of 1996 to 2006. And that's when I joined Facebook. And suddenly, when I came back for the 20th, I had been in touch with all these people over the next 10 years. And that was just, it was a million times more fulfilling for me.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's very sweet. I've stayed in touch with a lot of people. I've not gone to any reunions. I'm a
Oh,
little bit,
on maybe the 30th.
I'm a little bit like, as my husband would agree. He's watching right now.
Is he? That's
Yes,
great.
there he is. Um, he's very supportive.
As well he should be.
Um, so would you like to start?
I would. Yes. Okay, I have it on my computer over here because I had
Okay.
I put it on my phone. I am from Backseat, Yes and No, Invisible Ink for ages 7 to 77. From Leaky Tommy Waterfalls and Stratomatic. I am from the Eastern Nassau, shag carpeted, brushed nickeled, formica coated splanch. Artificial, arbitrary, like the sharp blue center of a peppermint velament. I am from Taxus Baccata, shaved, spruced, trimmed, and offering gorgeous red succulent yew berries and their poison. I'm from Plainview Diner Naugahyde, breakfast booths begging for jukebox quarters and scarfing down double-dipped hollow French toast. I'm from fighting over facts and exuberant interruptions. From Tanta Edja and Uncle Marty Silverbeans. I'm from Gingy, you have such pretty hair. And never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And there's an ass for every seat, which never rang so true to me, but it sounded good. I'm from Hebrew school 3 times a week and missing movies for Stella Doro Friday night onegs. I'm from somewhere Soviet to somewhere rural near Montreal and also Lodge to Hanover to Washington Heights, but ultimately always Queens and Long Island, where we always eat every kind of chicken cutlet again. And sometimes wavy noodles with poppy seeds, suburban meals never from the old country, more like Old Country Road. I am from the most important random rainy day Copenhagen Amex encounter ever. 2 shaggy New Yorkers, oblivious to the Warsaw Pact Prague invasion who yammer on the overnight train to Amsterdam. I am from thousands of ectochrome slides and amber negatives and foil wrapping paper shoe boxes. But I'm also from the 21st century. I can try to immortalize every last recorded memory, but never every secret in a cloud. Thank you.
Yay! I loved all those details, Michael. They were so evocative. Naugahyde, envelopments, and shag carpet. All of those are familiar to me.
Yes.
It was details, as we know, are so important in writing.
So important. And I'm sure Maya McDowell will one day be watching this and
She will
tell you that I have emphasized.
She definitely will. She says lots of lovely things about you. So, and she said she was so excited you were doing this. So, as have I. So, what was the experience like for you writing this poem?
It was wonderful. So the reason I said it feels like forever is when you invited me to do this, I was on my vacation, or maybe it was right before I went on my vacation. I first started doing this on my vacation with my wife, and we were somewhere where there was no cell service.
Nice, good work.
Yes, it was upstate New York, and it was on this like little resort spa on a creek where there were goats. And
Did you do goat yoga?
no, excuse me. I did yoga.
Okay.
I was thinking, how do the, because I know these goats belong to this place. Why do they not do goat yoga? But I don't know. I probably would have done it if they offered it, but they didn't, so I didn't.
Right? Why wouldn't you just try? If it's like included, I would try it. I'm not going to pay
Absolutely.
the extra fee, but like, little goat on your back.
When there's very little risk, I all for trying almost anything.
Agreed.
I invited people to the other day. We had a party, and I got. Do you know what Rambushan are?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So nobody knew what it was, and they're all
Yeah.
looking. I'm like, you gotta try it, and they're like,
Yeah.
you try it. I'm like, how about I do this? I'll open it for you, and then you try.
Yes,
And
they're all over here. I mean,
that,
they're in every store here. Well,
or
not every store, but most stores. Yeah, because they're like I think most. I think Filipino culture loves really enjoys them,
is
and
that
there's
what?
lots of Filipinos here. So yeah,
I didn't know where it came from, but I
aren't
thought,
they adorable though?
oh yeah,
They're so cute. You just
yeah.
have to pick them up for that reason. I actually once put some googly eyes on one and
Oh,
took a picture because
that's
they
it.
sort of look like Muppets.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love, and they taste great, and
yeah.
for whatever reason, people are scared of them, and
Which I find so humorous. Like for me, I'll pretty much try whatever food. I think it's exciting. I love food.
Yes, yes, and I've become a lot more adventurous with food as I've gotten older. Probably because my taste buds have died a little.
It's probably true. I also just think like I don't know. As you get older, you can either become smaller and smaller, or you can expand and get
That's
bigger and bigger.
that's
And
right. I still,
I'm going for the latter. I think
yeah.
I'll have a happier time of it.
It's funny because I actually I've developed certain food allergies as I've gotten
Oh
older.
yeah. Yeah.
I had them, and suddenly like I can't eat walnuts anymore. I get
Oh
like
no.
and once we grew our own red hot chili pepper, and I had this crazy experience where it it exacerbated my salivary gland, and my
Yes.
face blew up. It wasn't a reaction. It was apparently it was like the mumps
Oh
without.
no.
It was crazy. My dad's a doctor. I went over to his house and I woke him up. I'm like, Dad, look at me, look at me. He's like, oh wow. I'm like, what is it? He's like, it's bilateral. Oh, I can't remember what he said, but whatever he said. Um, I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, basically, you have the mumps, but you don't have the virus.
So then you're all swollen.
It was is beyond swollen. I was like,
Oh no.
it was like I was in
Did you
in
have kids?
what's that?
Did you have kids then?
Oh yes. In
Were
fact,
they terrified?
my
Or were
son's
they old enough to find it humorous?
my no, my older son said, and I, Daddy, I feel really sorry for you that you're going through this. And my younger said, yeah, I never want to look like that.
Yeah. They're always very honest.
Very honest.
Yeah.
And when I started working on this poem, I was very relaxed, and I was very, you know, I was in a place where I could really
Hmm.
get in touch with my childhood. And I think you were talking to Melissa about this, that you have very few memories, people's memories from when they were little kids, but actually a lot of these are from when I was very little. Um,
Yeah, they
and
seem very 70s.
yes, 70s and definitely early 80s.
Hmm.
But what's really crazy for me is I actually live in the same neighborhood that I grew up in,
It's amazing.
and I work in the same in a school that I actually went to school at. Um,
Do you really?
I do,
I
and
didn't know that.
yes. So the
Wow.
college bought the property of my old middle school.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yes, and 50 acres, and it was a high school before it was a middle school. So I go to
How
my
surreal.
middle school every single day. Uh, and
Wow.
yes, and my kids went to my old elementary school, and,
Wow.
um, and so many things from my childhood stayed exactly the way they
Mhm.
were, but a lot of them are now like shutting down. So like I mentioned the Plainview Diner. The Plainview Diner is was 50 years old, and it shut down 3 weeks ago when we were there on its very last day.
Oh.
Really, um, it really was an emotional experience. We went there after my son's soccer game. I'd gone there. My first memory of going there, but I know we went there before then. Was We went there right after, as a family with our family friends. We all went to see Grease. So that was 78, 79.
Hmm.
I mean, think about that.
Hmm.
And in fact, they had such a loyal following because I believe it was in early 1978, there was a huge blizzard on Long Island, and people were killed. People were stuck in their cars, and the Plainview Diner had been open for maybe 4 or 5 years. The owners opened their doors, and they had a generator. They were like the only people that had a generator and giant refrigerators, and they invited the entire community to bring all their meals and all their food stuffs from their refrigerators to their refrigerators, and they earned the everlasting loyalty of the community for 50 years.
Hmm.
So Rachel Ray had one of their waitresses on. She had been serving there for 40 years or something like that. So it was a real staple. And I did live out in Los Angeles where you are, and I do remember that there were a bunch of diners and delis that had that similar feel that I think have since closed.
Some are still open.
Yes,
Yeah, and they're
but
institutions. But I
yeah,
think sometimes, like, there's a bookstore that is a cultural institution, S1. It's a black-owned bookstore,
oh,
and they were going to close because they don't want to run a bookstore anymore.
right,
You know, like, I mean, it wasn't because they didn't have interest or community support, or it was just they were done.
yeah,
And I think people now are trying to buy them out. I'm not sure where that's out because it is such a like important Black institution. But
yeah.
I get it if you're done. You know, like
Oh yes,
you've you've done your 50 years, and
absolutely. I understand it. It's just it, in a certain way it stops belonging to the original
yeah,
creative owners and starts
yeah,
feeling to a lot of people like they own a part of it, and it certainly
yeah,
owns a part of their lives.
yeah. That's really. I mean, I don't feel it. So is Deborah from there?
Deborah's from California.
Okay, so she made the move.
She's from Northern California, and actually, no offense, I know a lot of people have heard this, but I was living in Los Angeles, and she was at Northwest, and she and I were planning to move in together, and I had a really nice job offer, and she said, I can't live in Southern California. I
Okay.
grew up in Northern California. I can't live in Southern California. Where else can you do film? And I said, New York is the only other place that I really could do it.
Hmm.
And we're moving to New York.
Wow.
And
That
so
is a strong dislike for Los Angeles.
it is. And the funny thing is that I was only in Los Angeles for a year.
Hmm.
And once I had decided to move back to New York, I had started to really kind of come to like a lot of the aspects of Los Angeles. And so many of my friends after I moved to New York moved to Los Angeles and have stayed.
Oh, really?
And I went back a year later. No, no, it was actually a few years later. I'd gone back a year later, but then a few years later, she and I both went to conferences out in Los Angeles during our first anniversary, wedding anniversary. So that would have been in 2002, and I felt as comfortable as I've ever felt in Los Angeles. That was the last time I went to Los Angeles. And the
It's
funny thing
changed
is,
a little.
it has, I know. And I was supposed to actually go back out. My of counsel is Gordon Firemark. He's a Los Angeles entertainment attorney, and he and I have been zooming every Friday for 7 years, 8 years,
Hmm.
and and I was supposed to go out and visit him, and something happened, and oh, yeah, something happened where there was a snowstorm, what have you. But even that, it got canceled, and I still haven't been back out there. So I would love to
Well, when
come
you come out, we have
visit.
to have lunch or dinner or something.
Yes, I would
Yeah,
love it. I just don't know when I will get out. It's
you're too
it's
busy.
that's one thing that I haven't gotten better about, which is I hate flying
Oh, really?
too.
Yeah, some people, my flying is a family tradition in my family. My mother was a flight attendant. My grandfather was a pilot. Most of my uncles are pilot. My father was a naval pilot.
I never knew.
Um, yeah, I have a letter right outside this room from Amelia Earhart to my great aunt, who was an aviator as well. So
Oh
it
my,
is like in my blood. So I don't mind it. I've never minded it. And I grew up with the old, like, you're safer on a plane than you are in a car.
yeah,
So
intellect.
I I know it's not an intellectual thing. I know it's another thing, but I still am kind of enraptured by the magic of it when I'm in the air.
Are you?
But like we're in the air.
Have you ever on a plane yourself?
I have not. No, I didn't. It's very expensive hobby.
Is it?
Um, yeah, to become licensed. My mom's boyfriend was also a pilot. My so I've been in private planes.
Hmm.
that people, and like actually my cousin, he's sort of taken it on. He's a stunt pilot.
Wow.
Um,
Stunt
yeah, yeah. So I, yeah, I
amazing.
never did pilot, and they were always like, "Oh, it's changed so much. The sky is so crowded. It's not like it was when we first became pilots." Which I think everyone says that about everything. So
Right.
I don't know if that's really a reason, but yeah, it's an expensive hobby, and I don't need expensive hobbies, so I never took it up. Um, but I'm sorry that you don't like flying.
No, that's okay.
It's annoying.
Well, so my sister actually lives in um, not so far from Northwestern, so
Hmm.
I do fly. I don't
Hmm.
like it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I flying to Los Angeles. We used to also we used to fly to California at least once or twice a year because Deborah's from California,
right.
but her family has actually moved to the East Coast, so we really don't get out there
Well,
anymore.
when you do,
I
I'll
will.
probably still be here. I don't really see us leaving. We are very much entrenched in Southern California. Happily, we found a community of people that we really love and we
You're
feel a
from,
part of. I grew up in Orange County, yes, until I was 14. And then I went to high school in Colorado. And then I went to Northwestern.
that's right.
And then I was like, it's too cold here.
No,
I have to leave now. This is a beautiful city that I love very much.
our freshman year was by far the coldest, and I was looking into transferring because I didn't think I was just on a panel and I was talking about this very subject because I was convinced it was the weather, and this was I believe I like to tell people, you know, instead of pursuing your passions and your dreams, because you may not even know what your passions and dreams are if you're not exploring. Instead, figure out what you hate,
And don't do that.
and then make that an uncrossable line, and don't do that. And very often you will discover what you love through crossing out everything you hate. And so I was convinced that it was the weather at Northwestern. But then I said, okay, I'm going to think about this over spring break. And over spring break, I thought about it and realized it wasn't the weather at all. It was me feeling bad that my girlfriend had broken up with me after high school, and
Oh, yeah.
all my friends seemed to be having a better time at college than me, and with a new attitude, and I ended up loving it. So
Well, that must be a really good story to share with your students. Like some of it, no matter where you go, there you are.
that's
Like you gotta
that's
figure
right.
out what part is you and what part is other external forces. And I find a lot of it is me.
Yeah,
Um,
and think about it. I mean, all the things that wouldn't have happened if I had made that
well,
decision to transfer,
yeah.
uh, my entire life would be completely different. You and I were in that freshman um, poetry writing class. I think that was spring class.
We were in a different section, or were we in the same section?
I think we might have been in the same section.
Man, it really like got me, man.
Oh,
It's funny that you bring it up because I did want to talk about Dell before we wrap because
yeah,
that's a huge connection that we have. But I had forgotten about the poetry class, which just completely uh, demoralized me.
she demoralized everybody. And the thing is, I was really into poetry before I came to college, and I was really active with our literary magazine.
Did
I
you
mean,
see who just joined us? Hi, Maya.
hey, my,
And not to interrupt you, but
that's my.
So yes, you were really into poetry, and she managed to strip that from you. Is that what you were going to say?
Well, yeah. So, I was active in the literary magazine,
Mm. Oh.
and I had heard about the writing program at Northwestern in the English department, but also the creative writing for the media program,
Mm-hmm.
which you and I both did. Yes, hi, Maya. You're supposed to be in class.
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Um,
Um, and I remember, so I had put together a book of poetry
oh
my
wow.
year fall, and a bunch of I gave it to a bunch of friends, and they really liked it. And I'd gotten involved in Helicon, um, and then
Oh,
and
okay.
into this class. and like it's like everything you think is good about the work you do is crap.
Oh God.
It is she like she, and yeah, we spent a lot of time focusing on meter, but
Mm.
I felt that you were talking about what it stripped it of all its humanity, which I think poetry ultimately is about. Like meter's nice and everything, but come on, like, um,
Sorry. Oh man, I wish we could have talked about it then. Because
yes,
I completely internalized. I was like, wow, I'm a piece of shit. I mean, really,
right,
like, I just completely was like, and this whole thing, this listening to poems once a week or twice a week, sometimes it's been almost a year, has given me back something that I didn't realize how swiftly I just like let go of.
right,
Because someone in a position of power told me I was bad at it. I loved poetry too, Michael, not to the same degree, but I read it and I loved it and I felt less alone. And I was just like, well, I'm done. I am not a poet. I don't read poetry with the same things in mind, like you say, meter. I mean, like, I didn't respond to poetry the way that she told me I should. And the poems that she liked, which, if we were in the same section, one specific student, she really held him up as like this genius poet. And I was just like,
you don't see it.
I didn't really I mean, I didn't think he was bad, but
No, but
I wasn't like, oh, okay, well this, it was just like, okay, this is one guy's take on it and his is valid, but so are all these other takes.
there
And
were
there was no space for that. There's
no.
no space for other takes.
Now I don't know if you remember this. Gwendolyn Brooks came
Yeah.
to campus,
I
and
love her.
yeah,
Mm.
her too, and and she had read a wonderful poem, and I had brought a book of her poetry for her to sign.
Oh, you were such a fan. I love it.
I was we real cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I and in fact, I don't know if you could see any of the influence of we real cool in my
Mm.
poem, but I went for that
Yeah.
specifically, and and I went up to her afterwards and I thanked her and I asked her about the poem she had read, and she said, "Oh, that's not in a book. Would you like my copy?"
Oh.
And she gave me her copy and signed it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
So
so
amazing.
yeah, and I had gone down to the west side of Chicago a bunch over the years because there was free there there was free jazz and poetry slams.
Yeah.
I think it was at the Hot House,
Yeah.
and I go down there. And I remember I was wearing a Knicks hat, and I was definitely in Bulls territory.
I was gonna say, man, especially back then.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be wearing this hat. Uh, but I had a great time, and then after that, I had done some poetry stuff at Hofstra over the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and I had this wonderful mentor, Colette Inez, who's a wonderful poet, and she really liked some of my jazz poetry. I was really into Ferlinghetti, and if you remember, you were a theater major, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started out as a theater
Your
major
performance studies?
in performance studies, and so we actually focused a lot on poetry
Yeah.
for studies. So I remember I did pieces with Lawrence Ferlinghetti and Allen Ginsberg and all and the beat poetry. So
Yeah.
I didn't lose it after Ann Winter's class. I'm
See, you
I'm,
named her.
I'm allowed to name names.
She's still alive. I Googled it because I was thinking of saying her name at some point, and I was like, I don't know, but you did. So,
I have no.
yeah.
Um, but that being said, my mom just like 2 months ago found that book I had written back when I
Mm.
finished high school, and she's like, "These poems are unbelievable." I'm like, "Thanks, mom." Like I'd never showed it to my own family. I don't think I'd ever. I don't even want to look at it honestly, but I know that it exists, and my parents like it, so yeah, that's nice.
Wow. Well, I hope that this act of reading this poem has helped you reclaim. It has helped me reclaim things that I loved and
It
that part of myself that loved it. And felt like, wow, she's like really hard on everyone. It doesn't need to be like this. But I definitely and I know that I said that more than once, probably knowing me. And she was like, eh. Basically, I was not intellectually rigorous enough. That was certainly her point of view. Um, and I feel like I have managed to say, yes, I am intellectually rigorous enough, but I actually think these poems are valid and worthwhile and have something to say. And so for me, it has been like me putting my stake in the ground and saying, I care about this and it means something to me.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for that opportunity because I really just like rolled over inside. I mean, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to be in this class if I'm lucky. I just need to get through it.
Yeah, I don't know if I even got to be in that class.
I was very far from A material. I was like,
My
oh, okay.
I had my worst grades, and it wasn't just that. I mean, I had really set out to be a writer at that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
and and to have people who had, well, frankly, had the comfort of the ivory tower
Yeah.
talk about, you were just talking about intellectual rigor. This isn't about intellectual rigor. It might be about a certain set of mechanics,
Yeah.
but certainly not reaching into your soul and just snatching every last bit out. I mean, that's what I understand poetry to be. That's why I think that Walt Whitman is so relevant today, because I don't think he had these airs about his poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, he encountered people who said, "This isn't poetry. This is,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't valid."
Mm-hmm.
I love the way people just, say, "Oh, I'm a judge of whether this is valid or not." If it
Mm-hmm.
And Maya will tell you that the first instruction I give my students is to find your audience, find your tribe,
Yeah.
find the people you connect with on really on an emotional and intellectual basis, but first on an emotional basis.
I agree. I think that was my advice to Maya as well. So way to go, us.
That's what
Um, so that was that. And then we applied to this program called Grade Writing for the Media, which at that point was a thing you had to apply to. Now everyone can take the courses, which makes a lot more equitable sense.
I didn't know that though.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Um, so, and our advisor was Delle Chatman, who was a mentor and an inspiration to both of us. And she died many years ago. And I just enjoy saying her name and giving her thanks because she, particularly after the experience that I had in that poetry class, and to be honest, the experience I had in the fiction class, which was no better.
Yeah.
Jesus. Um, Dell was, she put me back together.
Yeah.
She
Just
told me I had something to say and that it was worth saying it. And I could never repay her for that. And she was just such a generous and brilliant person.
yes. And she really, I don't know that she ever got enough credit.
She
I
did
mean,
not.
we did we don't need to list the people who have come out of this program, but you want to talk about intellectual and emotional rigor. I mean, these are people who you and I have kept in touch with, and have grown into wonderful people, but also amazing artists and thinkers. And she, it all started from that program. And I actually took a huge risk. Um, I wanted to get into that program so badly. I mean, yes, it would have been nice to have gotten into the English writing program, but I went there specifically because I wanted to be in that program, and
Mm-hmm.
it only took 12 people, and it was some sort of delusion, but we ended up in it, and it really was worth it. It was worth not studying abroad, not doing a number of other things that we might have done
Mhm.
to really together put together some great work, or at least a laboratory for a great future work.
Yeah. And I thought it was she set the tone. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but she set such a constructive and supportive tone for each other and our creative evolution.
Yes.
And that is the main job, in my opinion, of someone who's teaching a creative course. And that was not the tone in the other two classes that we're talking about. Was just like, how can I tear you apart different ways? This was like, oh, I believe in you, and here's how it could be better, maybe.
Yes.
And yeah, she absolutely was not recognized during her time at Northwestern, which is something I have taken up with and carried to the people that I know there. And so she's getting some belated recognition, which is not enough, but at least it is something, and people are saying her name and um, acknowledging how much she put into Northwestern and the writing programs there. So
And you've really spearheaded this effort to get her recognized and to celebrate her memory. I wonder if one of the reasons why she was not recognized, uh, among besides the fact that she was a woman of color, it is a pretty lily white institution at the time.
yeah,
I think it also has to do with the fact that she was in in creative writing for the media, and
mm-hmm.
therefore there was this notion that that's not part of the academy. So
Yep,
I got the sense from writing poetry and fiction that this was, a long line of, this is the way writing is supposed to be taught, and
yeah,
this is the way, if I were at an Ivy League institution or I at Stanford, this is the way I would teach it. And that's not the way. There were so many more possibilities and an openness to change,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I think is part of the reason why she didn't get that recognition at the time. But I think the results are clear, whether people did go into the quote industry and, take that for what it's worth, that it's called the industry, or that they're just creative souls who are very talented and use the skills and the experiences, for whatever. I mean, wonderful family people, wonderful,
Yeah,
beings.
it takes all kinds.
She
There's
really,
all kinds of success, and she supported that.
yes,
And that was also a huge inspiration to me, because one of my last conversations with her when she was out here, she was already very ill, and she made a trip out here, and I gave her a ride to her hotel, and I remember sitting in the car with her, and she was just like, do what makes you happy. None of this other stuff matters. It's not going to make you happy.
that's
And she's right.
yes. And you have created, man. You have created.
I like making things. That's true. But
I, I
she always believed in me, and it means more than you can really tell a person. But she always did, and she had space to believe in so many people. And I think that was also in great contrast to those classes we're talking about, where it was very much like, I have room to believe in one of you, maybe. And so you better fight it out to be that. Where she was like, I can believe in all of you.
That's
I
right.
don't have to choose. I don't need to have a favorite. I love you all.
That's right. And that's the way it should be.
I agree. I don't have favorites.
No.
So anyway, I just
Sorry,
wanted
Maya.
to definitely talk about her before we close, because I know that she's someone who brought us together
Yeah,
and who continues to bring us together even after all these years. And I think that speaks to her strength of character and love.
it's true. It's true. And she introduced us to some wonderful films. I
She
remember
did.
Days of Heaven. I never in a million years would I've watched Days of Heaven.
It's funny. I watched it again in film school, of course, because it's a fave. But yeah,
Did you?
yeah, because it's so beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But as a student, I don't think I would have ever thought to have picked that out. And
No.
Terrence Malick is at this point, a film icon.
He is. He's not for me, but he is a film icon. I am not his audience. Um, I can say with comfort. But any other closing thoughts before we go? Because we have
No,
been chatting for a while.
I really have enjoyed this, and
Me too.
we should do this, you know, more often. Anyhow,
Yes, true. I appreciate you joining me, Michael. I
yes,
know you have many other things. Everyone has other things they can be doing. So I appreciate that you joined me and you wrote this beautiful poem and that we had this conversation and that you brought up those classes that I have not thought of in a long time. And man, they tore me down.
I'm sorry.
So it's good to
Uh,
it's good to acknowledge them and be like, oh hey, yeah,
yes,
that happened.
yeah,
But I'm here now. So
that's right. And I'm so glad we could finally connect over this, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and I look forward to your next edition of Reburn.
oh, thank you. Thank you for your support. It means a lot. So. And thank you everyone for joining us. Everyone, especially Maya. Okay. Bye, Michael. And thanks for